with regard to what we believe is right for the country, where law reform is concerned. And under the circumstances, it's important for us to indicate that perhaps given the manner with which citizens are discussing the constitution making process, those that may not mean well making Bill 7 look like Bill 10, and they will actually tell you that this is Bill 10 in another form. We felt duty bound that we do a comparative analysis of the two. Thereafter, in those Bill 7 content, and what is even more concerning is the fact that people are dismissing the bill, they are not discussing the content. The whole essence of taking a bill to the people is to allow people to unpack, to open it and look at the contents therein, one at a time, the merits and the demerits, and why they believe they do not agree, than rubbishing the whole document. Because rubbishing the whole document is not only unfair to those that are rubbishing, they are being unfair to citizens who may not understand the content. And most important, the challenge of rubbishing the whole document is that you reduce it to a political subject. A governing document being reduced to a political subject, where you have the proponents, the protagonists, and the antagonists pulling in a parallel in lawmaking. At the end of the day, my mother, who is in Kaputa, who simply sells sugarcane, who doesn't understand anything but believes that they are able to vote, that's the only power that they can exercise, are being misled by those that deliberately would want to suffocate the process of the constitution making process. We are also aware the government has issued a statement through the chief government spokesperson, who is also a party spokesperson, Honorable Cornelius Mwetwa, to the effect that they have discontinued engagements arising from a fixed position that has been undertaken by the Oasis Forum. By a fixed position simply means they are coming with a do or die position. See that you will listen or there will be no negotiation. Now, our view is that you can't hold government to ransom in that manner. There is only one government. You are simply stakeholders. The reason we have elected leaders is to avoid what Oasis is doing. They are elected so that they undertake activities on behalf of citizens. But it seems Oasis wants to run the country by coming up with a fixed position that it's either you take this or never. There's no country anywhere in the world which runs using CSOs. Not one. So, we thought that we should now speak to the issues. In the same manner, we believe that the Oasis Forum is a concoction of just some CSOs. There are also many CSOs that are for the constitution making process. That basically makes them stakeholders. In a democracy, part of what constitutes a successful democratic dispensation is agreeing to disagree. There is no constitution making process world over where people agreed as a whole. All constitution making processes that we have undertaken in this country have had people who have disagreed, but they have gone through. It also depends on how many disagree and how many agree. It is interesting. We went to see the reports coming from the technical committee which was set up. Many of those submissions that were made on TV or on radio in full view of citizens are promising in terms of the route that we are taking in our constitution reforms. They are promising in the sense that the submissions are progressive. People are speaking to the issues. What is sad is that in some cases, when it pertains to an issue that relates to youth, you find the people that are pushing for that kind of agenda against the constitution making process are old men and women, and not the youth themselves. When you talk about persons living with disability, those that are not living with disability are the ones that are rejecting the document. Now, let us go to the issues of today. I thought that you could have. This is Bill 10, colleagues. For those of you who do not know it, this is Bill 10. So this is a print. All these papers that look like Constitution. This bill is actually bigger than the American Constitution. So the American Constitution just has about 26 pages. So what is the difference to start with? The difference is that Bill 10 was focusing on about 117 amendments. I'll make this available to you. It was an overhaul. In some jurisdictions, it is a constitution. That is the starting point. And we could run through in brief, maybe as you scroll down. This is just a memorandum on top. If we can go down there. Go down to the next page. Next page. Yeah. Next page down. So you can see. No. Too fast? Just, if you look at the top there, you can actually start looking at how amendments are coming. 1, 2, the preamble, deleting mouth religion or mouth religious to insert the word Christian nation. We were opposed to this document because Zambia is not composed of Christians as one religion. It is not a theocracy based on a particular religion. It is a multi-religious state. We have the Muslims, Hindus, to mention but a few. You go to the next one, you discover that they are basically making an amendment. You go scroll down. 3. Then you have sub-article 5 there. They are making specific amendments going down. What else are they removing from the preamble? You know, it's an issue to do with mouth religion and inserting Christian nation. In Article 8 of the Constitution, they want to make an amendment to include Christian morality. There is just morality there. They want to put Christian morality and ethics. Can someone tell me where you can find Christian morals and ethics? Where all Christian, denominations have a collectively agreed position. I don't think one will give us. Exactly. So, based on that, the preamble amendment was rejected. Let me further indicate that Bill 10 sought among other things, apart from the preamble, electoral changes, such as removing 50% plus 1. Okay? Such as cabinet restructuring, in which they wanted to reintroduce deputy ministers. In addition to that, that ministers must remain in office up to dissolution of parliament. What else did we see there in that document? When you go down there, it has about 117 clauses. And then in the meantime, you are only looking at 13 clauses that we want to deal with, or 13 amendments, not clauses, that you want to make against a document which is basically an overhaul. This one. Now, what did they do? They sought to include some of the things that are appearing in Bill 7, such as delimitation, okay, and the mixed member, inclusion of the gender aspect. So now they are saying all these things you are talking about were there in the Bill 10. That is not correct. The case of Isaac Mwanza, which gave us the problem that we are trying to resolve of nominations, came after 2021, not in 2020 or 2019, when this was being considered. What was that case seeking to do, that judgment? Or what has it done? It has changed the entire narrative of nominations. That when one dies, when one resigns, or when one member withdraws after filing in of nomination, you must call for fresh nomination. That judgment changed everything. It affected everybody. The challenge with that judgment, friends, as you may have downloaded on your phone, is that the court did not state how many times someone can withdraw. For example, we go for general elections today. At presidential level, one person is sponsored either by the opposition or by the ruling party. Because some people think that the ruling party is more concerned. I've said either by the opposition or the ruling party. And they have been told, when you go for general elections, you withdraw as a presidential candidate. They withdraw. The Constitution of Zambia provides that within 90 days, elections must be held for the presidential candidates. Now, the challenge is that they can sponsor another one within that 90 days to withdraw again. Meaning you have another 90 days. That is why the president said this constitution now in its state can cause a perpetual evil. The judgment does not tell us how many times we can withdraw. In other words, you can continue withdrawing. Meanwhile, President Church remains president. The moment they realize there is a constitutional crisis, what are some of the legal implications? And maybe peace is threatened, right? As a result of such kind of activities. They feel that our peace is threatened. The president will reconvene the National Assembly. And do you know the danger of reconvening a National Assembly? You will have suspended certain provisions of the Constitution on when elections are supposed to take place. In terms of to prolong Parliament, it will now be dependent on the President and the Speaker agreeing when the next election should be held. Is that what you want to see? Now, that is a constitutional crisis we've been talking about. So, I want to tell you, friends, that unlike Bill 7, the other thing that Bill 10 had was to scrap off commissions. All the commissions needed to be scrapped off. We were opposed because commissions provide an oversight role. Public Service Commission, Teaching Service Commission, among others, through delegated powers. Because the principle on delegated legislation is that the power that has been delegated to Francis cannot be exercised by a person who has delegated. And that is therefore, it provides an oversight role. The next thing they wanted to do was that you are aware of the House of Chiefs, no, sir, where there is the chairmanship involves rotational leadership because we have different chiefs across the country. Bill 10 sought to remove that provision so that they could subject the House of Chiefs to an open election. Meaning chiefs to ascend to the House of Chiefs chairmanship needed to be elected. Our view was that we were going to politicize the traditional leadership in the country. We were opposed to that. The next thing they wanted to do was to remove a clause from the Constitution that requires that when a person has retired from public office, they are supposed to be retained on the payroll until such a time that they are paid. They wanted to scrap off that so that we go back to where it used to be, where you retire today. You wait even for 10 years without a coin for you to be given your dues. That was in Bill 10. The next thing they wanted to cause, apart from the bringing back deputy ministers we talked about, was that Bill 10, here it is. I'll give it to all of you in electronic copy through our colleagues. They wanted colleagues in Bill 10 to empower the president to divide, to establish districts and provinces without parliamentary ratification. In Bill 10, to give the president more power by not subjecting such powers to checks and balances. The next thing was that, in addition, as many of you may know, was that the number of judges that sit at the Concord, that number is prescribed by the Constitution of Zambia. They wanted to remove those powers from the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, and relegate them to Parliament, that Parliament will be deciding. Our view was that these organs of the state lie pari passu, meaning they are on an equal footing. They have to keep each other in check. You cannot relegate the establishment of the other to the legislature. We were opposed to it. The other thing that came out of that document has to do with borrowing money. That when the state wants to borrow money, because remember we hit a debt trap, we defaulted. We were the first country to default during the COVID-19. The other thing that Bill 10 proposed to do was that when contracting loans, the executive did not need to go to parliament. Again, an assault to the doctrine of checks and balances. They wanted it to be in Bill 10. All those things I've talked about, friends, including stay of ministers up to the election time, are not found in Bill 7. They are not there in Bill 10, Bill 7, they say. The other one which they wanted to merge the Financial Intelligence Center with the DEC. That's what is in Bill 10. By amending Article 193 of the Constitution. We were opposed because the Financial Intelligence Center, just by establishment, deals with intelligence information. The two are different institutions. And the very fact that the Financial Intelligence Report is made public, DEC is not obliged to publish anything. It was going to kill our investigative wings. We were opposed. DEC can decide not to tell you anything. They will just tell you after they have arrested someone. The FIC will give you a report. Our view is that it was going to reduce the process of accountability, where citizens hold the people they elect to account. That was going to be taken away. Today, you are able to know, friends, how your money is being used because of FIC. They wanted to remove it. We were opposed. This particular issue is not in Bill 7. So how can someone wake up and tell citizens that Bill 7 and Bill 10 are the same? Now, I should also indicate that they also wanted to amend Article 107 in Bill 10, which deals with the removal of a head of state for mental illness. They wanted to, how can a normal person wake up? You remove a clause which provides for the removal of a head of state for being mentally ill. They want to preserve and keep the president who is mentally ill in state house. What kind of thinking is that? Yeah. They wanted to include that in Bill 10, this document I'm giving you. It is not there in Bill 7. Friends, there is a lot more. I can only conclude by indicating to you that this is how evil Bill 10 was. Now, with Bill 7, what are we looking at? With Bill 7. Under Bill 7, colleagues, we are only looking at 13 things. Some of them have been caused by court rulings. What that means is that a court ruling can have a positive or negative implication. I have demonstrated the case of Isaac Mwanza, which has changed the trajectory of elections when it comes to nomination. I have told you that sponsoring a candidate with withdraw can go either way. And for a very long time, we are aware that most of our colleagues in the opposition, because they have realized that they do not have the capacity to provide clear checks and balances, they have been making attempts to cause anarchy in the country, that perhaps they can find a common ground. And they are so much interested in us going with a constitution with the defects that have been identified by the court, so that they can have an opportunity. You can see when they call for protests, you tell them, here is a platform for engagement. Because you only protest when the platform has been denied. They go there, they have no content. They are rubbishing the document. They are not interested in presenting their argument on each content. What are those contents that are found? For avoidance of doubt, it's an issue to do with delimitation. The Constitution of Zambia, friends, the Constitution of Zambia, colleagues, allows for delimitation in not more than 10 years. It must be conducted. Not after 10 years, as others have said, not after 10 years, but not more than 10 years. It must be conducted. And this process was started in 2019 when UPND was not there. You remember when they were throwing, our cousins were throwing the chairs against each other? May the soul of Sarah Second rest in peace. That was delimitation consultation which was going on. That's when it started. What were they doing there? Assuming that is a UPND stronghold. What were they doing? Because now they are changing the narrative that no, these people want to only make changes in their stronghold. But I also want to tell you that the delimitations that they have been conducting for many years advantaged their strongholds. But that is not the point. You have, for example, the case in point that has been highlighted, Kanchivia, which is basically a country. You know, look at the population of Kanyama. You find it's more than a population of, it's equivalent to populations of other countries, maybe like South Tome and Bhutan in Asia. And then the constitution is very instructive that when doing delimitation, you must take into consideration the population, the geography, among other issues. Okay? Now, if the constitution says you shall conduct delimitation not beyond 10 years, how can you conduct delimitation without amending the clause that requires, or that states that, which states that there shall be 156 constituencies? That's what the constitution says, right? For you to conduct delimitation, you must amend that clause so that it says something else. That's what they are opposing. Does that make sense? For you to conduct delimitation, which is needed constitutionally to be conducted in a period not beyond 10 years, you need to change the wording of the clause which says there shall be 150 constituencies. In other words, you must propose a higher number. So meaning, since there is 10 years there, we do not want to violate the constitution. Meaning an amendment is a must. That's what the constitution is telling you. Delimitation is a must, it's not an option. You don't need an opinion to delimitate. It is statute bound. That's what it means. You don't need UPND opinion. You don't need Oasis. It's already in the constitution. Amendment of the constitution for delimitation to go ahead is a must because the constitutional provision. Let us look at other proposals. Why it is important. I've already buttressed the point of nominations. I will not waste time on that. The other issue that is coming out is the inclusion of women. Then we are saying, the number is too low. Let's consult more. Now, let me tell you. For you to even arrive at 20, we call it positive discrimination also, or affirmative action. Now, the principle about affirmative action is that it discriminates against other people, but the action is taken as positive. That's why it's called the positive discrimination. It is discrimination, but it is positive. So it is admissible under international statutes and later on in this country. Now, the danger of increasing the number, for example, to 70, is that you kill your democracy. Because democracy is the rule of the people. They must elect their own leaders. What positive discrimination does is to impose leaders on citizens. I want you now to understand. What positive discrimination does is that it imposes leaders on the people. Whether you like it or not, 20 must go in. So now, how do you increase it to 70? Then you allow people to choose leaders of their own, only a minority of them. So, reason, the voice of reason is that let us allow citizens to continue electing people of their own. In the meantime, we can also push in a clause for positive discrimination, arising from the fact that when we go in an open contest, women find it difficult to make it into parliament. Meaning, the number of women in parliament will be more than 20. People like the minister for Lusaka, who won on their own as females, will add to the 20. People like the MP for Kafiwe, who is a female, they won through an open contest. It simply means they will add to 20, meaning we have more than 20 women, thereby meeting the international standards on the convention that Zambia is a signatory to. on female representation. That's what the country is supposed to move, the directions the country is supposed to move into. Others are saying, no, we need to consult him. And then, because they believe UPND is going, they believe it's only them who can make changes. The next thing that is coming out is for youth. 15. Meaning you can have more than 15 youths in parliament, including those that go in an open context. The next thing that we want to deal with is an issue which has been thrown in the flesh by elections. I'll tell you, friends, that so far we have had 84 by-elections. Does that make sense? 84 by-elections. And out of those 84, UPND has won 78. just to send a message to our colleagues who think winning is a joke. Because the pattern of voting has not changed. That is our assessment. It is the same as in fact, it has worsened now against the opposition. It's the same as 2021. The pattern has not changed. So, the other thing that we need to bring out are persons living with disabilities. Those that are eligible to vote, who are forming about 7% of our country population. 7% of our. So if you get the same percentage, you take it to parliament, it is giving you 3. If you are going to get their percentage by the population of this country. That's how they were arriving. They were just using a percentage. Eligible women to vote, eligible youth to vote. Same percentage at national level. They use the same percentage to arrive at 15. They use the same percentage to arrive at 20. When these CSOs gathered at State House, excuse me, I was present there. They requested the president, who believes in dialogue. He said, well, I'm ready to listen to them. And they raised a point which was persuasive. They told the president, Mr. President, this bill, in the manner it has been drafted, it is not clear on how we shall arrive at the 20, how each political party will be sponsored. And then secondly, those are the points we are raising. We feel that we should not relegate such powers so much to the ECZ. They should remain in the constitution. The president is listening. So we believe this is a gap that we need to harmonize. He was listening. Then they had to conclude by submitting that. Mr. President, it is not too late for you to defer this document. We are committed. We are not against it. The content is good. Those are CSOs. We are requesting through you that you defer. You have another sitting. You defer the document. So that during this period, we come up with a team. They look at it. They refine. Then you can take back in the final sitting. Then the president listened. Within, I think, 48 hours or so, the presidency responded. The government responded by deferring the bill. It had already arrived in parliament. They deferred it. And among the institutions that I am aware that LAS submitted 6 names. I'm aware. LAS, the Law Association of Zambia, submitted 6 names to be in the technical committee through the secretary to the cabinet. Other CSOs also submitted. So, the people that you are seeing seated there are proposals from CSOs. Their colleagues go around, they believe they've done due diligence, they bring the document. They go, the others go and sit somewhere, then they change the position. Then they come and say, no, can we withdraw the document completely? For what? Huh? Now, because then that's blackmail on the president. You go and advance a position, he listens to you. Then you say, yes, this is what we are looking for. Then the consultations can start. They are not getting submissions to reinvent their wheel like the CRC. They are speaking to the gaps in the proposed bill. And they are also giving their position that we are opposed to this position because of the following reasons. We agree that we need youth because of the following reasons. We don't want the bill because of the following reasons. Those are submissions across the country people have been making. Now, in lawmaking, as long as you have allowed yourself to take around the document and the citizens have spoken to it, then it will go through the parliament. It will go to parliament. That is why when they went to court, their bid was thrown out. Because that's the forum shopping. That you brought a document here, arguing before the court that there was no consultation. It was granted. Consultation went ahead. Then you come back and say, even that consultation is bogus. Can you pronounce that it is unconstitutional? Then they say, no, you're wasting court's time. It's thrown out. You already argued that there is consultation going on. You go to court before it is concluded. It's premature. It is not competent before the court. Thrown out. Now, colleagues, what is the message from us? The message is that for permanent secretary, for one to become the secretary to the cabinet, it is required that you have how many years? 10 years experience. Now, the time that clause was introduced was at a time when people used to rise to the position of the PS hierarchically. Are we following each other? Now, along the way things change. Today, I can become president and appoint Makokwa as PS, even if he has never been in government. Meaning, there should be no prerequisites of one rising hierarchically for Makokwa to be PS. So why do you want to keep the 10 years? And then, if you are to keep the 10 years, very few people, at a time that permanent secretaries were rising hierarchically, very few of them would be alive after serving for 10 years as PS, because most of them were old. If you avoid those PSs, PEMSECs, that served under PF, the possibility is that going backward 15 years ago, most of those that served for 10 years as PS are using walking sticks. The danger of having that provision is that you are going to create a constitutional crisis one day. You will never find a PS who has served 10 years. It's a bad clause. So the question you need to answer is, what if there is no one who qualifies as PS? What do you do? As Secretary to the Cabinet, what did you do? Now, the constitution we are using has not answered. It is silent. So then it is a dangerous clause. Meaning, whatever cabinet will agree without the secretary to the cabinet will be null and void. That then leads to a constitutional crisis. Now, we are trying to cure it by reducing the number of years. It is true. If you reduce it to 5 years, that's fine. A person has served as PS, they know what happens in a ministry. The question is, how long does it take for one to know what happens in a ministry? So, all those draconian clauses are being knocked out with time. And part of one of the attributes of a good legal system, it are laws that change according to changing society. Laws that change according to changing society. So here we are, we endorse Bill 7 in totality. There is nothing sinister. Those that don't mean well are claiming that these people want to extend the tenure of office for the president. It's not there in the bill. They are cheating people that they want to remove 50% plus 1. 50% plus 1 is Bill 10, the document they made themselves. So they are using their documents to deceive people that this is Bill 7. You have heard what was in Bill 10, and you have heard what is in Bill 7. We must be sincere to ourselves. Sometimes when you become too politicized, you stop reasoning. Then you become a danger to your own country. You become a danger. So now that they have lost the debate, they are rubbishing the whole document. They don't want to discuss content because they can't win. They don't have a debate against the clauses. They are just saying, can you withdraw it? Then they'll say the timing is poor. Parliament has the constitutional mandate. We are within the constitutional mandate of legislating. And the constitutional mandate for legislating is from the time MPs are sworn in to the time Parliament is dissolved. And Parliament is still deliberating. They are still having business. It has not dissolved. So they are on firm ground. They must have a different debate. Even if Oasis Forum are not present, the document can go ahead. They are not the ones that legislate. When they were given an opportunity to make submissions, they refused. Why do they want to come back? Because in lawmaking, you listen to each other's debates. You can't come up with a fixed position. At the same time, there is no law that says CSOs like Oasis Forum should make the constitution. Not one. And it's not true that whatever they say is correct. That's not correct. And what others say is wrong. And vice versa. So then what's the principle? We must agree to disagree. Taking into consideration this constitution favors them. They are going to keep quiet. Even on the computation of time when there is a presidential petition. Do you know what UPND would do if they wanted? Same as butane. And you are there. And yet we can reset.
What are the advantages as opposed to not having?
Okay.
Okay. I can see a question there from Westro.
Morning, Mr. Director. Yesterday we had
Can you introduce yourself for the...
How are you going to do it? So you must carefully look at those things. Because we won in Northern Province at presidential level. Then we have penetrated Wapula. So someone must carefully make a submission on which one is stronghold for. So how are you going to know the stronghold for UPND? When UPND in Chirundu lost to an independent, you must be very careful. The president has reconvened. Are you sure I can support the idea of having immediate election? Assuming they continue resisting. Because then Parliament is convened to again start doing an amendment in a crisis. Because people have continued withdrawing for 2 years. Who would want to see such a thing? People have continued to withdraw at presidential level for 2 years. And now they want to cure it. The only way to cure it is to go back to Concord. Whose result we may not know. They may uphold their earlier decision.
Maybe Peter Director may wish to respond to that main argument that they have as we get one question.
Let's see if we can get
Yes, sir?
Yes. I'm Barnabas. So, Mr. Simuuwe.
Barnabas is in reverse gear. But the principle was achieved. Yeah, the principle. Have I answered your question?
Yes, you have answered. Now can I just
You want to make a comment?
Yeah, there was this problem basically.
There are ways of making the constitution. Is one, by amendment. Two, by going to the people to start afresh. Now, we are not starting a process of making the constitution. It's an amendment. We are making amendments to the constitution of Zambia of 1991. If you want to come up with a new constitution as a whole, it's mandatory that let the people start the process. Almost amending for the second time.